The groom, full of self-confidence, loudly threw in my face at his daughter's wedding. "Look at yourself. You don't deserve to be with the elite." I remained silent, swallowing my humiliation. But suddenly his idol, the most influential guest, entered the hall, walked past the groom, and hugged me. "Glad to see you, partner." My son-in-law turned pale as a ghost. The betrayal of my family turned into unexpected revenge. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I arrived at the hotel suite early that morning, my hands trembling slightly as I carried the envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000, Margaret's savings combined with mine, meant to give Faye and Clyde a solid start. I'd rehearsed what I'd say about family, about building something lasting together. The suite was chaos when I entered. Faye stood in her silk robe, gesturing wildly at floral arrangements, while her wedding planner scribbled notes. Bridesmaids clustered near the window, champagne glasses already in hand, though it wasn't yet 9. "Faye, honey," I said, extending the envelope with both hands. "I wanted to give you this before the ceremony, something special for your new beginning." She glanced at me, then took the envelope with one hand while pointing at a centerpiece with the other. "Just leave it on the table. Lisa, did you confirm the string quartet knows to start exactly at 7? I stood there, hands still outstretched, foolishly. "It's from your mother's savings, too. She would have wanted." Faye tore open the envelope, glanced at the check amount, and tossed it onto the vanity among scattered makeup brushes and hairpins. "Finally something worthwhile. Thanks." She turned back to the planner. "Now, about the centerpieces." I backed toward the door, mumbling congratulations no one heard, and left. The ceremony passed in a blur. I walked Faye down the aisle, her hand barely touching my arm. At the altar, she didn't look back once. During the vows, I watched Clyde display her like a trophy he'd won, his chest puffed out with ownership. The reception began at a historic Charleston mansion, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers. I found myself drifting along the room's perimeter, holding champagne I didn't drink. Wealthy collectors mingled, their conversations about acquisitions and estates washing over me like foreign languages. When the toast began, I wasn't told when to speak, watched awkwardly as others went first. My toast was brief, generic, met with polite applause that felt like dismissal. I retreated to my corner again, suddenly aware of every thread in my tuxedo, wondering if Clyde was right. If I'd rented it, would anyone notice? That's when Clyde spotted me. He weaved through guests with exaggerated confidence, his voice already too loud, bourbon thick on his breath. He stopped directly in front of me, planting his feet wide, blocking any escape. "Look at yourself, Ambrose." His voice carried across the marble. Conversation slowed, heads turned. "You're wearing a rented tuxedo among people worth millions." I looked down, swallowed hard, kept my hands at my sides to hide their trembling. "You don't deserve to be with the elite." Clyde's laugh was sharp, cutting. "This is our world now, old man. You think writing checks makes you one of us?" "Clyde, please," I managed, barely audible. "Not today." A woman nearby whispered, "Is he really doing this at his own wedding?" The grand entrance doors opened then. The room's energy shifted instantly. Victor Renard entered, legendary European collector, the man whose opinion could make or break reputations in our world. Clyde had written him dozens of emails over 6 months, desperate for connection. Victor scanned the crowd, his eyes landing on me. He walked forward past Charleston's elite, past Clyde frozen mid-boast, straight to where I stood. "Ambrose Woods!" His embrace was warm, genuine. "Wonderful to see you, partner." I felt myself breathing again. "Victor, I didn't know you were coming." "Miss a Woods family celebration? Never." He kept one hand on my shoulder, turning us slightly so his voice carried. "That 18th century secretary desk you found me, an absolute masterpiece. The provenance was impeccable." "I'm glad it found the right home." Victor finally acknowledged Clyde. "You must be the groom. Congratulations. Your father-in-law has an extraordinary eye for quality. I've learned much from him." I watched Clyde's face drain of color. Around us whispers started. "That's Victor Renard. He only deals with top-tier collectors." "They're partners?" I thought Ambrose was just family. "Clearly we misjudged," Clyde muttered to a friend nearby. "I've been trying to meet him for months. He walks right past me to him. Across the room, I saw a bridesmaid approach Faye. Should you check on your father? That scene with Clyde was... Faye waved her off dismissively. Daddy can handle himself. Clyde just had too much champagne. Can we focus on my wedding? Check if the photographer got the cake cutting set up. Victor excused himself to greet other guests. I stood there, surrounded by changed perceptions, yet feeling nothing but hollow. My own daughter hadn't defended me. She'd chosen her husband's cruelty over her father's dignity. I looked across the room at Faye and Clyde. Their eyes met mine briefly. Faye looked away first. I walked toward the exit, my daughter's laughter echoing behind me, and realized I couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed like that with me. I drove home through empty streets, replaying every moment of the day I'd spent months planning and minutes living through. Street lights blurred past. My house, usually a refuge, felt accusatory when I pulled into the driveway. I moved through dark rooms without turning on lights, ending in my study. Sat in the leather chair Margaret and I had picked out together 20 years ago. On the walls, framed photos of Faye's childhood stared back, her first day of school, me teaching her to ride a bike, her college graduation. In every photo, I was smiling, certain I was building something lasting. I tried to read, couldn't focus. Poured bourbon, left it untouched. Watched dawn creep through the windows, still wearing yesterday's tuxedo pants and undershirt. Late the next morning, the doorbell rang insistently. I moved slowly to answer, exhausted, hoping irrationally that it might be Faye coming to apologize. Instead, I found them both on my porch. No greeting. Faye's first words, "We need the beach house keys. We're leaving tomorrow for the honeymoon." Not asking. Informing. Clyde stood behind her, arms crossed, checking his watch. They didn't step inside, didn't notice the exhaustion carved into my face. "Good morning to you too, sweetheart," I said quietly. Faye scrolled through her phone. "Yeah, morning. So the keys." "We're on a schedule, Ambrose," Clyde added. "We've got a flight to catch tomorrow afternoon." I gripped the doorframe, lightheaded. "Do you want to come in, have coffee? Talk about—" "We don't have time." Faye cut me off. "Just grab the keys." I turned without speaking, walking to my study where I kept property documents organized in labeled drawers. My hands shook slightly as I unlocked the drawer. I held the beach house keys for a moment, remembering buying that property last year because Faye said she needed a place to escape and recharge. $340,000 for her escape. I returned to the door, extending the keys with a flat, expressionless gesture. "Faye, about yesterday." I tried. She took the keys without meeting my eyes. "What about it? It was perfect. Everyone said so." "I meant what happened with Clyde. What he said to me." Clyde stepped forward, defensive. "I was just joking around." "You're too sensitive." "Daddy, can we not do this now?" Faye was already walking toward their car. "We have 100 things to pack." "Sure," I said to her, retreating back. "Have a good trip." "We will?" She opened the car door. "Oh, and make sure you're available if we need anything while we're gone." I watched their taillights disappear, standing in my doorway like hotel staff who'd just handed over room keys. After they left, I couldn't stay still. Wandered to the storage closet thinking about Margaret, wishing she were here to make sense of this. The box labeled Margaret's Journals sat on the top shelf where I'd placed it 8 years ago, unable to look inside after her death. I lifted it down carefully, carried it to my desk, opened the lid slowly, releasing the faint scent of her perfume preserved in paper. Her handwriting on yellowed pages stopped my breath. I found entries from her final months, lucid despite the illness consuming her. One passage made my hands freeze. March 15th. Argued with Ambrose today about Faye's graduation gift. He wants to buy her that condo downtown. $340,000. I said no, she should save for her first place. He accused me of being harsh, but I see what he doesn't. She expects everything handed to her now. My darling is so generous, but he's teaching her the wrong lesson. She needs to learn that money comes from effort, not expectation. I'm worried what will happen when I'm not here to balance his generosity with my discipline. I sat there, staring at Margaret's words when the phone rang. I answered absently, still reading. Ambrose Woods. Mr. Woods, this is Richard Chen from Charleston Trust Bank. I'm calling to verify the documentation for the business line of credit. I'm sorry, what line of credit? For Clyde Harrison Investment Solutions, LLC, you're listed as co-founder and personal guarantor for $200,000. The chair fell backward as I stood. I'm listed as what? I'm not involved in any business with Clyde. A pause. That's concerning. We have documentation with your signature establishing the company and guaranteeing the credit line. That's impossible. I never signed anything. Mr. Woods, his voice grew serious, I think we need to hold this application. This may be fraud. After I hung up, I stood frozen, staring at nothing. Then I moved mechanically, pulling financial records from my filing cabinet, spread them across the desk, started calculating. $700,000. 3 years. Faye's condo, her car, her credit cards I'd paid off twice, the wedding, the beach house, endless emergencies that always required immediate wire transfers. I picked up the photo of Faye from my desk. When did you stop seeing me as your father and start seeing me as a bank account? Margaret's journal lay open beside the financial records, her warning written in her careful hand, the bank manager's card with his direct line. I looked at the beach house deed, the property I'd bought so we could build memories together. I'd given her memories. She'd given me nothing. This ends now, I said to the empty room. I don't know how yet, but this ends. I sat at my desk, surrounded by evidence of my own blindness, and for the first time since Margaret died, I knew exactly what I had to do, though I didn't yet know how to do it. We've only just begun this story, but believe me, it's about to get much more intense. Stay with us to find out how our protagonist gets his revenge on those who wronged him. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I did what I do best. I documented, organized, and analyzed. The dining room table disappeared beneath 7 years of bank statements, receipts, canceled checks. I created a spreadsheet with methodical precision, each entry a small cut. Faye's college tuition, paid in full when she could have taken loans. $160,000. The downtown apartment I bought as investment in her future. $340,000. She never paid a single maintenance fee. Clyde's startup that produced nothing except expense reports for luxury dinners and business trips to Miami. $75,000 evaporated. The wedding that cost more than my own marriage celebration had 40 years ago. $85,000 for a single day. By dawn, I had my answer. $712,450 in 3 years. Not counting her car insurance I still paid, her phone bill, the smaller gifts that seemed too petty to track. I stood at the window, watching Charleston wake in shades of pink and gold, and made a decision that felt like stepping off a cliff. I would take back everything I legally could, not out of spite, out of necessity. They'd taught me the relationship was transactional. Time to balance the books. The Charleston Bar Association gave me 3 attorney names. I researched each one, chose David Connor based on his case history, with elder financial abuse. His office occupied the 3rd floor of a restored building on Broad Street, the kind of address that suggested competence without ostentation. Connor read through my documentation with practiced efficiency, property deeds, bank records, Margaret's journal entries. His expression shifted from professional neutrality to genuine concern. Mr. Woods, let me make sure I understand. He tapped the beach house deed. You purchased this property in your name, allowed your daughter to use it, but never transferred title. Correct. She asked for a place at the coast. I bought it as investment property, gave her unlimited access. And this downtown apartment, $340,000 purchase price. Any written gift declaration? No. I put the deed in her name, but continued paying all expenses. She never contributed a dollar to maintenance, taxes, or utilities. Connor leaned forward. Mr. Woods, South Carolina law is very clear on this. The beach house is entirely yours. She has no claim. The apartment is more complex, but statute 62-2-804 allows revocation of gifts for gross ingratitude. Public humiliation and exploitation could qualify. He paused, studying the bank documents about Clyde's fraud. Now, about this. Your son-in-law used your name as co-founder without permission? The bank called to verify a $200,000 credit line. I knew nothing about it. That's serious. Beyond civil recovery. That's criminal fraud. But we need proof. I recommend a forensic accountant who specializes in investment fraud. Cost is around $5,000. 2 to 3 weeks for preliminary findings. I didn't hesitate. Do it. If he defrauded me, he may have defrauded others. I need to know the full scope. Connor slid the authorization form across his desk. I read every word. My years in the antique business taught me to read contracts carefully. Signed my name with a steady hand. Wrote the retainer check without hesitation. This signature represented a choice, from passive victim to active participant. That evening I attended an estate auction. Work obligation, clients waiting for evaluations. I moved through the rooms examining pieces with practiced eye, but my mind operated on 2 tracks. Evaluating a Chippendale chair while calculating legal strategy, discussing lot numbers while mentally rehearsing conversations with Faye. I stood before an 18th century secretary desk, similar to pieces I'd sold Victor Renard, and realized I wasn't actually seeing it. The veneer work is extraordinary. A woman's voice beside me. Charleston craftsmanship circa 1780. Are you bidding on it? I turned. Beatrice Clark, owner of Charleston Auction House. Her reputation matched my own. Evaluating for a client, I said. The provenance is unclear. You're Ambrose Woods, aren't you? Southern Heritage Antiques. I'm Beatrice Clark. I know your work. You handled the Rutledge estate last year. Beautiful pieces. She studied me with the same attention she'd give a questionable attribution. You're somewhere else entirely tonight. Everything all right? The question, asked with genuine concern rather than social politeness, caught me off guard. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been there. Coffee after this? You look like you could use conversation that isn't about furniture. I should have declined. Instead, I nodded. The calf? Overlooked Charleston Harbor, evening light turning the water bronze. Beatrice ordered decaf. I ordered bourbon in my coffee. A small rebellion against my usual restraint. She didn't press, just waited. Eventually I talked. About the wedding, the humiliation, the discovery of fraud. Not seeking sympathy, just needing to speak it aloud. Beatrice listened, then shared her own story. My late husband's children from his first marriage tried to contest his will, claimed I manipulated him. Legal battle lasted 2 years. What did you do? I fought, and I won. Not just legally, I won back my peace. She met my eyes. Love isn't supposed to feel like extortion. If they can only love you when you give them what they want, that's not love. We talked until the calf? Staff began clearing surrounding tables. Walking her to her car, I opened her door, an old-fashioned gesture that made her smile. We exchanged business cards, the gesture of equals. Driving home, streetlights passing like beacons, my phone lit up with a text from Connor. Preliminary title search complete. Beach house is unambiguously yours. Draft eviction notice. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Last hesitation, last chance to remain the father who'd say yes to anything. I typed, "Yes, proceed." I pressed send and watched the message disappear into the digital void, carrying with it the last remnants of the father who'd say yes to anything his daughter asked. The week that followed moved with strange duality, surface calm masking tectonic shifts beneath. Connor called twice with updates. Eviction paperwork prepared. Bank notified of fraudulent credit application. Preliminary audit showing concerning patterns in Clyde's investor communications. I had dinner with Beatrice on Tuesday and Thursday. We talked about Georgian furniture, childhood memories, what comes after loss. I found myself laughing at her stories, sharing my own. The weight that had pressed on my chest since the wedding began to lift. The morning after Faye and Clyde returned from their honeymoon week at the beach house, a process server arrived at 9. Eviction notice. Faye Woods Harrison must vacate property within 10 days. Property registered solely to Ambrose Woods. No legal transfer of ownership ever occurred. Simultaneously, Connor's office sent registered letter to Charleston First Bank about Clyde's fraudulent credit line application. I was drinking coffee in my study when my phone erupted. Faye's name on the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice came through as pure rage. "What did you do?" "We just got served with eviction papers. From the beach house." "Yes, I sent those." "You can't do this. That house is mine. You gave it to me." "I allowed you to use it. The deed has always been in my name. You need to vacate within 10 days. "You're destroying my marriage." Her voice broke into sobs. "You can't stand to see me happy. What kind of father does this? I held the phone away from my ear, listening to her hysteria, waiting for any acknowledgement of the wedding humiliation, the years of taking without thanks, the fraud her husband committed. None came. In her narrative, she was the victim, and I the aggressor. The kind who's been paying for everything while being treated like an ATM, I said quietly. 10 days, Faye. I'll never forgive you for this. Never. I can live with that. I hung up. That afternoon, my doorbell rang with aggressive insistence. Through the window, I saw Clyde's car in the driveway, Faye silhouetted in the passenger seat. Clyde stood on my porch, jaw tight, hands clenched. I'd prepared for this. In my study, I had a folder ready. Property deed, tax records, insurance documents, utility bills, all showing sole ownership, sole responsibility. I opened the door. Clyde launched immediately into threats. You can't take back a gift. That's not how the law works in South Carolina. We'll sue you for breach of promise. Emotional distress. I have lawyers who'll bury you in court for years. By the time I'm done, you won't have a reputation left in Charleston. I stepped aside, gestured for him to enter, led him to the study, sat at my desk, home territory, psychological advantage, gestured to the chair opposite. By all means, consult your lawyers. Have them review these documents. I laid out the papers one by one, like cards in a winning hand. Property deed, tax records, insurance documents, each one clearly labeled, each one irrefutable. This is the property deed, filed with Charleston County. Sole owner, Ambrose Woods. Clyde grabbed the papers, flipped through them looking for some loophole. There must be a second deed, a transfer document. There isn't. These are the tax records. I've paid property tax for 12 consecutive months since purchase. You said it was for Faye. You told her it was hers. I said she could use it. I never said I was transferring ownership. Words matter, Clyde, especially when you're in the investment business. You should know that. His face shifted from aggression to something closer to fear. This is revenge for the wedding. No, this is property law. If you find evidence of legal transfer, present it to my attorney. His card is in the folder. He threw the papers down and left without another word. I gathered them calmly, returned them to the folder, walked to the front door, opened it. The message clear. That evening, emotionally exhausted, I met Beatrice at a small Italian restaurant away from downtown. She'd suggested it, sensing I'd need refuge. I ordered bourbon neat before dinner, something I rarely did. Beatrice talked about her day, giving me space to transition from confrontation to conversation. When the food came, I found I was hungry, first real appetite in days. How do you feel now that it's done? She asked. Now that you've actually stood up to them? Terrified, liberated, guilty, justified, all at once. That's normal. The first time I said no to my stepchildren, I threw up afterward. Literally. How did you get past the guilt? I realized guilt was their weapon. They trained me to feel guilty for having boundaries. Once I saw that, the guilt lost its power. Faye said she'll never forgive me. Beatrice smiled sadly. And you said? That I can live with that. Then you've already won. Not the legal battle, the internal one. That's the only victory that matters. We talked until the restaurant staff began clearing surrounding tables. I walked her to her car, opened her door, stood in the parking lot after she drove away, feeling the pleasant weight of connection rather than the oppressive weight of obligation. Driving home, my phone rang. Connor, how did it go today? I assume they contacted you. Faye called screaming. Clyde showed up making threats. Any physical intimidation? No, just legal threats. Said he'd sue for breach of promise. Connor chuckled. Let him try. He has no case. Now comes the hard part. They'll try to manipulate you emotionally. Stay firm. I'm done being manipulated. What's next? We wait. Either they vacate or we begin formal eviction proceedings. Also, the auditor called. He's found something significant. Multiple elderly investors. Can you come in tomorrow morning? I pulled into my driveway, my house lights glowing warm against the Charleston night. I'll be there at 9. I sat in my darkened car, watching those lights, and wondered how many other people Clyde had used my name to hurt. I didn't sleep well that night. By morning, I was driving to Connor's office with a sense of dread that proved entirely justified. Marcus Webb, the forensic accountant, was already there when I arrived. Documents covered Connor's conference table like evidence at a trial scene. Mr. Woods, my investigation revealed systematic misuse of your identity and reputation. Webb spread the papers methodically. Your name appears on incorporation documents you never signed, marketing materials you never approved, investor presentations you never saw. I picked up one, a glossy brochure featuring my photograph, lifted from my gallery website. Strategic Advisor, Ambrose Woods, renowned Charleston antique dealer with 30 years' expertise in fine acquisitions. How much money did he take from these people? Total reported investments, $287,000 from 6 individuals. Average age, 71. All cited your reputation as primary reason for investing. Connor slid another document toward me. None of that money went into legitimate business operations. We tracked it to personal expenses, car payments, luxury goods, travel. I traced the forged signature on the incorporation papers, noting how Clyde had practiced it, got it almost right. He stole from elderly people using my name while I paid for his wedding? Yes, sir. The timeline overlaps significantly. Some investors were writing checks while you were paying vendors for his reception. Webb provided profiles of each investor. I read them with growing nausea. Dorothy Miller, 72, retired elementary school teacher, invested $35,000 from her pension savings. Robert Chen, 68, widowed shopkeeper who'd saved $52,000 over 40 years, trusted the investment because Mr. Woods' reputation in Charleston is impeccable. These weren't abstractions. They were real people whose retirement security Clyde had stolen while using me as cover. This is securities fraud, identity theft, forgery, and elder financial abuse, Connor said. South Carolina takes elder abuse seriously. It's a felony with mandatory prosecution referral. I stared at Dorothy Miller's investor form, her shaky signature, trusting what turned out to be a lie. I thought about the wedding, Clyde's expensive suit, the arrogance in his voice. That suit was bought with Dorothy's pension. File the police report, I said. Contact these 6 investors. Tell them I had no knowledge of this, and I'll help however I can. They deserve their money back more than I deserve family peace. Connor nodded, respect evident. I'll make the calls today. I returned to my gallery mid-afternoon, emotionally exhausted. My key was in the lock when Faye's voice stopped me. Daddy, please, we need to talk. She stood by the entrance, face blotchy from crying. I let her follow me inside, bracing myself. Remember when I was 8 and broke Mom's vase? You said accidents happen, families forgive? Her voice cracked. Mom always said family comes first, no matter what. She wouldn't want us fighting. She'd want you to forgive me, help us get back on our feet. Every word calculated to hit trained responses. Margaret's memory, childhood innocence, family obligation. I felt my resolve wavering despite everything I'd learned that morning. The gallery door chimed. Beatrice arrived for our scheduled meeting about consignment pieces. She took in the scene instantly, Faye mid-manipulation, my conflicted expression. Beatrice set down her portfolio, walked directly to us. Your father gave you everything. The only thing you don't have is a conscience? Faye's tears shut off like a faucet. This doesn't concern you. This is between me and my father. It concerns anyone who won't watch you manipulate a good man. He's given you hundreds of thousands of dollars. You repaid him with public humiliation and fraud. Faye's mask dropped completely. The vulnerable daughter vanished, replaced by cold fury. You don't know anything about our relationship. He owes me. After Mom died, money was all he knew how to give. Well, I took what was offered. She turned to me. And you were pathetic, always trying to buy my love. It worked for years. Now you think you can stop? We'll destroy you. Clyde has plans. You'll regret this. She grabbed her purse, headed for the door. We're not done, not even close. The door slammed. Silence filled the gallery. Beatrice moved quietly, making tea in my back office, giving me space to process. When she brought the cup, I wrapped both hands around it, needing the warmth. I almost believed her, I said, voice rough. Even knowing everything, I almost caved. But you didn't. That's what matters. We sat in silence. Then my phone buzzed with notifications. 3, then 5, then a steady stream. I looked up to meet Beatrice's eyes, understanding without words that Clyde's promised counterattack had begun. We read them together, Beatrice pulling her chair beside mine, both of us staring at my phone screen as Clyde's carefully crafted narrative unfolded. Facebook post, shared 40 times already. Heartbroken to share that Faye's father evicted us from our honeymoon home days after our wedding. We don't understand this cruelty. He's even threatening to take the apartment Faye grew up in. We only wanted family, but he sees us as burden. Photos attached. Young Faye on my shoulders at the beach, our wedding reception moment capturing joy. Even one of Margaret with caption, "Wish Faye's mother were here to mediate this family tragedy." Comments accumulated like small blades. What kind of father does this? Elder cruelty goes both directions. Praying for you both. I need to respond to this, I said. People think I'm a monster. My clients are questioning me. Beatrice closed the laptop firmly. I understand. When my stepchildren posted about me, I lost sleep writing responses I never sent. My attorney said something I'll never forget. Never wrestle with pigs. You both get dirty and the pig likes it. But my reputation will be decided in court, not in comment sections. People who know you will ask directly. People who judge you based on social media weren't really your friends. She described her own battle, fake accounts amplifying lies, her burning need to defend herself. The hardness came later, after I won. Living through it was misery. By late afternoon, my phone showed the professional spillover. Email from the Historical Preservation Society asking if we could discuss board members' concerns. Text from longtime client requesting clarification. Voicemail from supplier questioning our contract. Most painful, young couple I'd been helping wrote, "We've decided to work with another dealer." I watched my reputation crack in real time. Following Beatrice's advice, I drove to Connor's office. We filed 2 new legal actions. Civil lawsuit demanding return of $75,000 given for Clyde's startup as funds obtained under false pretenses, and petition to revoke the apartment gift under South Carolina. Code Section 622804 for gross ingratitude. The apartment was in her name, I said. Can we really take it back? Public humiliation, fraud using your name, defamation campaign. That's textbook gross ingratitude. Apartment title reverts to you if we win. She'll say I'm making her homeless. She's a 34-year-old employed adult. She has resources. They're just consequences of her choices. Connor also drafted a cease and desist letter about the defamatory posts. Every post after receiving this becomes knowing defamation, raises damages significantly. I signed everything. Each signature felt like drawing a line, saying, "This far, no further." The business association meeting that evening showed Charleston's divisions clearly. Some dealers avoided eye contact. Others approached deliberately to show support. My phone rang during the meeting. Victor Renard. "Ambrose, saw some foolishness online. Don't tell me you're letting social media nonsense trouble you. It's complicated family situation. I've known you 15 years. Your integrity is beyond question. Whatever domestic drama you're navigating, your professional reputation with serious people is untouched. I'm hosting private auction next month. You're invited. Bring that elegant woman I met at your daughter's wedding." After the meeting, Sarah Martinez touched my arm. "Been through public divorce. People believe what they want. Truth wins eventually, takes longer than lies. But I also saw former friends keeping distance, heard whispered conversations stop when I approached. Later I drove to Beatrice's historic Charleston single house for dinner. She cooked citrus-glazed salmon, asparagus, rice, pilaf. We sat at her small dining table, conversation flowing from legal strategy to personal history. "I didn't plan this," she said softly as we moved to her porch. "After Thomas died, I thought I was done with all this. Companionship, romance, caring whether someone calls. I thought the same after Margaret. Convinced myself I was too old, too damaged, too busy to want anything else. When did you know you were wrong? That first coffee after the auction, you listened without fixing, understood without judging. I was terrified you'd think I was just some lonely widow latching onto the first man who showed up." I touched her face. "I think you're remarkable. I think I'm lucky you noticed me at all. For a man going through public humiliation and legal warfare, You're remarkably available emotionally. Maybe because you make me feel like myself again. Not someone's father, not someone's victim, just myself. When we kissed, tentative then sure, it felt like permission to live again. My phone rang as I drove home. Connor. Both suits served 30 minutes ago. Expect him to spiral. Within an hour, new posts appeared. Angrier, more desperate. Update. My father-in-law just sued us. We're newlyweds barely scraping by, and he's weaponizing lawyers. Elder abuse works both directions, but the cease and desist had landed too. The posts had a different quality now, desperation instead of confidence. I pulled into my driveway, went inside, made tea, sat in my study with a book, deliberately putting my phone on silent. Then it buzzed one more time. Text from unknown number. You'll regret this. We have proof you're not who you pretend to be. I stared at the message, considered calling Connor, decided it could wait until morning. The anonymous threat glowed on my phone screen for a moment before I turned it face down on the desk, refusing to let unknown intimidation steal the strange peace I'd found in the midst of war. Morning brought the usual mail, bills, advertisements, and one cream-colored envelope in handwriting I'd know anywhere. 6 pages unfolded in my hands, blue ink occasionally smudged. Dear Daddy, in the way she hadn't addressed me since childhood. I read standing at my kitchen counter, coffee growing cold. Each paragraph a precisely aimed arrow. Memories of Margaret, guilt about emotional distance after her death, the suggestion that my gifts were my love language, and she'd simply learned to receive love the way I gave it. After Mom died, you were all I had, but you were so sad I couldn't reach you. The gifts were the only way I felt connected to you. I read it 3 times. Each reading chipped away at my resolve. I called Connor. What would happen if I dropped the criminal complaint? Silence, then his careful attorney voice. The 6 defrauded investors would be impacted. But you don't control the criminal investigation once filed. That's the state's decision now. If you need to see for yourself, meet her publicly. Trust your instincts. I called Beatrice next, read portions of the letter, heard the worry in her voice. I can't tell you what to do, but promise me you'll be careful. 2 days later, I sat at the outdoor cafe, watching Faye approach. She'd dressed down, jeans, simple sweater, minimal makeup, hugged me tightly. I felt how thin she'd become. We ordered coffee. She began, I've been thinking about us, about Mom, about how I've treated you. I want to rebuild, but I need you to meet me halfway. She asked about my gallery, about Beatrice, seemed genuinely interested. I'm glad you have someone, Daddy. You deserve happiness. For an hour I felt the dangerous warmth of hope, but her phone lay face down on the table. 3 times during our conversation it lit up with incoming texts. Each time her eyes flicked to it. Each time the tiniest smile crossed her face before she controlled her expression. Someone was texting her during this sincere reconciliation. Someone whose messages made her smile while she performed vulnerability. We finished coffee. She hugged me goodbye with promises to take this slow. I walked away, then deliberately pulled out my wallet and keys, but left my phone on the table. Walked around the block to my car. Waited 1 hour. 55 minutes in, Clyde walked into the cafe. I waited 10 more minutes, then returned, claiming I'd forgotten my phone. Found it still on the table. But now Faye and Clyde sat together in a corner booth, backs to the entrance, leaning close. Their voices carried in the afternoon lull. Did you see his face when I mentioned Mom? I thought he'd start crying right there. Clyde laughing. The part about money being his love language was perfect. Made him feel responsible. He's almost broken. Few more meetings, he'll drop everything. Blood is stronger. He can't resist his only daughter forever. I retrieved my phone silently. They never noticed me. Walked out carrying the death of my last hope. Sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. Drove on autopilot to Beatrice's house. She opened the door, took one look at my face, pulled me inside. I told her everything. The letter, the meeting, the test, what I'd overheard. When I finished, she asked, "What do you need right now?" The question undid me. I started talking about the daughter I'd imagined versus the woman who existed, about feeling foolish for hoping, about exhaustion. She made tea, sat beside me, occasionally touching my hand, just being present. We talked through dinner, through evening into night. Beatrice shared her moment of clarity with her stepchildren, when she realized no amount of giving would ever be enough. The hardest part was accepting that some relationships can't be fixed because one party doesn't want fixing. They want surrender. Around 3 in the morning, conversation shifted from past pain to present possibility. What we wanted now, what scared us, what this unexpected connection meant. When her head rested on my shoulder, when my arm drew her closer, it felt natural. We fell asleep intertwined on her couch. Dawn light found us peaceful. Coffee brewing, her phone rang, Connor, asking if I could come in. The audit is complete, full report ready, and the DA wants to meet. They're moving forward with criminal charges. I held Beatrice's hand while Connor explained that everything was accelerating. The investigation, the charges, the reckoning, and for the first time since this began, I felt ready to see it through to the end. We moved through Beatrice's morning routine with surprising ease. Coffee, borrowed shirt, toast standing at her counter like we'd done this for years. "You don't go through today alone," she said. We drove to Connor's office together, her hand on my knee, steady presence. Marcus Webb spread documents across the conference table. 6 investors, $287,000. But then the shocking details emerged. Forged recommendation letters on fake Southern heritage, antiques letterhead, fabricated email account, ambrose.woods.consulting@gmail.com, used to answer investor questions as if I responded. Doctored phone records suggesting I attended investment strategy meetings. "Mr. Harrison didn't just use your name casually," Webb said. "He created an entire false business partnership." I picked up a forged letter, traced the signature. "He practiced this, got it almost right." Connor leaned forward. "The DA says this elevates to identity theft, wire fraud, elder abuse. Federal charges are possible." That afternoon, 3 investors arrived. Dorothy Miller spread her documents with arthritic hands, pointed to the forged recommendation. "Your reputation convinced me. I taught elementary school for 40 years, saved every spare dollar." Robert Chen showed photos on his phone, his hardware shop, family business for 30 years, closed now. "The money was my retirement." Patricia Walsh couldn't maintain composure. "I worked double shifts during the pandemic to build that savings. Your name made me trust him." I helped them draft their collective police report. My signature at the bottom. "I will testify to any and all fraud committed using my name." Connor brought more documents. Beach house eviction granted. Sheriff posting notice today. Apartment revocation hearing scheduled 2 weeks out. Judge's preliminary comments suggest strong likelihood of success. The empire they'd built on my generosity was being dismantled piece by piece. Late afternoon, I was at my gallery when Clyde walked in, looking nothing like the confident groom. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, desperate eyes. Beatrice stood immediately, protective. "We need to talk," Clyde said. "Work this out. I'll pay back the $75,000. Just make the criminal investigation go away." "You spent the $75,000, I said calmly, "and the criminal investigation is the state's decision, not mine." "You're destroying us. We'll have nothing." Beatrice's voice cut through. "You had nothing. You were living on his money and stolen funds." Clyde left with a final threat. "This isn't over." Evening at home, my doorbell rang insistently. Faye stood on my porch, face hard with rage. She pushed past me. "You're doing this out of spite. You can't stand that I found happiness without you. I'll tell everyone what kind of father you really were. Absent, cold, buying affection." She listed her plans. Social media posts, media interviews, court testimony about my emotional neglect. I let her finish, then responded calmly. "Go ahead. Tell everyone. 6 elderly people lost their life savings because your husband used my name. Witnesses will describe your behavior at your wedding. Tell your version. I'll tell mine." Her final attack. "I hope she was worth losing your daughter over." "I didn't lose my daughter," I said quietly. "I just finally saw who she really was." After she left, I called Beatrice. Recounted the visit while making dinner, her voice on speaker grounding me. "You did well," she said. "You gave her nothing to work with. Tomorrow, though? Tomorrow. and every day after you want me there. Later, finishing my meal at the kitchen table, my phone buzzed. Text from Connor. Clyde's attorney requesting meeting, wants to discuss settlement. Interested? I looked at the message, remembered the investors' faces, remembered Faye and Clyde laughing about my almost breaking. I typed back, no settlement. Let the court decide. The 2 weeks between rejecting settlement and the apartment hearing passed in strange duality, surface normalcy masking fundamental shifts beneath. Beatrice spent most evenings with me. We talked about opening a joint gallery space, combining our expertise and collections. Connor sent periodic updates, criminal investigation progressing, media starting coverage. I avoided the news, focused on the future. The morning of the hearing, Connor called. Clyde's at the police station now. 6-hour interrogation scheduled. DA has everything. Audit, forged documents, investor statements. His attorneys already discussing plea deals. The criminal machinery had taken over, operating beyond my control now. That afternoon, the Charleston County Courthouse felt smaller than its importance. Judge Patricia Morrison reviewed our evidence methodically. Victor Renard appeared via video from Europe, testified about the wedding humiliation. Mr. Harrison publicly stated that Mr. Woods didn't deserve to be among the elite. Deliberate, loud, designed to demean. I witnessed everything. Bank records, social media screenshots, systematic exploitation documented. Judge Morrison's ruling was decisive. The evidence shows systematic exploitation culminating in public humiliation and criminal fraud. The gift is revoked. Ms. Harrison has 30 days to vacate. The gavel fell with finality. That evening, Beatrice and I watched the local news. Charleston financial advisor Clyde Harrison faces multiple felony charges for allegedly defrauding elderly investors using a stolen identity. My name mentioned, respected antique dealer Ambrose Woods, whose identity and reputation were allegedly used without permission. 6 victims interviewed, faces blurred. We trusted him because of Mr. Woods' reputation. My name cleared publicly through facts, not my own defense. Over the following week, Connor forwarded updates. Clyde's advisory license revoked permanently. Bankruptcy filing revealed negative net worth exceeding $400,000. The leased BMW repossessed. They moved to a weekly rate motel. 1 week after the apartment ruling, my doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Faye's car, older model, dented door. She stood on my porch looking genuinely defeated. Thrift store clothes, no makeup, weight lost from stress. No Clyde visible. "Daddy, can we talk, please?" I let her in. For the first time, no performance. Just exhaustion and genuine fear. I don't know how to do this. Work, bills, taking care of myself. I never learned. Can you help me? One more time? I sat across from her, seeing clearly, perhaps for the first time. Not the idealized daughter I'd imagined, but a woman-child who'd never developed life skills, because I'd prevented the need. "Faye, I gave you everything except responsibility. That was my failure as a parent." She started to interrupt, but I continued. "I'll help you find employment. I'll pay first month's rent somewhere modest. But that's the boundary. No more money, no more property, no more rescue." I handed her an employment agency list, a check for $1,200, my business card. "Call me if you need a character reference for jobs. Otherwise, this is where our financial relationship ends." She stared at the papers. "So you're just done? After everything, you're abandoning me?" "I'm not abandoning you. I'm teaching you to stand on your own. The lesson I should have taught years ago. I'll always be your father, but I won't be your bank account." She left without another word. I watched her drive away, felt grief for opportunities lost, relief for the boundary finally set. My phone buzzed. "Beatrice, how did it go?" I typed. "It's done. Really done. Come over." "On my way." I heard Beatrice's car in the driveway and realized that while I'd just closed one chapter with finality, another was opening with promise, and for the first time in years, I was ready to turn the page. That evening, Beatrice and I sat on my porch, the same space where I'd spent so many nights reviewing Margaret's journals, now occupied by someone who helped me answer those questions. "No regret?" she asked. Sad, but not guilty. She needed that boundary years ago. "You know she might not make it. She might fail. Blame you?" That's not my burden anymore. I gave her tools. What she does with them is her choice. Beatrice touched my hand. Then let's plan our future. Show me those King Street properties. We pulled up listings on her phone, sketching business plans on napkins, laughing at our enthusiasm. 1 month later, Connor's email arrived. Clyde Harrison's sentencing complete. Probated sentence. Felony record, but no jail time. 5 years supervised probation. Restitution of $287,000 at $4,783 monthly. License revoked permanently. I forwarded everything to the 6 investors with a personal note about the foundation I was establishing. Faye sent 2 brief texts over the following weeks. First, got a job, hotel front desk, it's hard. I responded, proud of you for working. Second, found apartment I can afford. Roommate situation, but it's mine. Good, keep going. The distance allowed us both to breathe, grow separately. I sold both reclaimed properties. Beach house, $385,000. Downtown apartment, $425,000. After taxes and fees, net proceeds, $680,000. I didn't keep it. In Connor's office, I signed documents establishing the Margaret Woods Foundation for Elder Financial Protection, providing legal aid for elderly fraud victims, supporting financial literacy programs, offering emergency assistance. Board members, Connor, Marcus Webb, Dorothy Miller, and me. You're turning your family's pain into systemic protection for vulnerable people, Connor said. Beatrice and I announced our partnership officially. Woods & Clark Fine Antiques and Auctions. We leased historic space on King Street. Victor Renard committed to 3 exclusive auctions yearly, opening planned for September. One morning in my gallery, I stood before Margaret's photograph, spoke to her quietly. I finally understood what you meant, about teaching Faye responsibility, not just giving her things. I touched the frame gently. Met someone, Beatrice. I think you'd like her. Pause, then. I'm sorry it took losing everything with Faye to learn the lesson, but I learned it, finally. The conversation brought peace, not resolution of grief, but integration of loss into life continuing. Late July afternoon, Beatrice and I sat on my porch, reviewing gallery renovation plans. My phone chimed. Faye's message, Dad, I found a place I can afford on my own. First apartment that's really mine because I earned it. Working full-time plus weekend shifts. Exhausted but proud. Is this what you meant about self-sufficiency? Thanks for the lesson, even though it hurt. I showed Beatrice, who smiled. She's getting it. I typed carefully. Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Proud of you. We returned to our plans, sitting in comfortable silence as Charleston evenings settled. What are you thinking about? Beatrice asked. About justice. How it doesn't look like I expected. Not dramatic courtroom victory or triumphant vindication. Just this. Ordinary evening, planning ordinary business. That's what justice looks like when it's real. Not drama, but balance restored. The investors are getting restitution. The foundation will help others. My reputation's restored. You and I are building something together. And it's perfect, I said. This quiet, ordinary evening is exactly what I fought for. Not revenge. Just life, on my terms, with a chosen partner. She squeezed my hand. Then let's enjoy our perfectly ordinary evening and plan our perfectly extraordinary future. I set my phone aside and reached for Beatrice's hand, watching Charleston's summer evenings settle around us, and understood that justice had never been about making them pay. It was about learning, finally, to build a life worth living. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.